on. Do I have to repeat all of that? I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
It's the end of roll call.
Thank you very much. Next is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. A couple of things to mention tonight. First, we had a long-standing member of the community that volunteered for quite a few years and really invested in Mountlake Terrace. Recently retired from Edmonds, the Edmonds School District, and moved. But Oscar Halpert, we really wanted to recognize him. He has been volunteering for different events in and around the community for over 20 years. And I think it's important to celebrate people that have that type of dedication to our community. Couple other things. We have 4 Eagle Scout projects coming up, so you'll be seeing some of those. One is Patrick, who built the benches near the new accessible playground in Ballinger Park. So that was a great project. And I mentioned one of these before, but the Eagle Scout that did this project was Zachary. He's the one that reclaimed the trail at Terrace Creek Overlook. So that was very helpful to us, and we really appreciate that work. So they'll be coming before you at a future meeting just to showcase their projects. 2 others are currently starting projects. They're gathering those materials, and as we have more information, we'll share that with you. On Saturday, I believe, possibly Sunday, sometime over the weekend, we'll start draining the smaller tank at water tank at Jack Long Park. It's for cleaning. We're going to clean the inside. We're going to get some really cool pictures of that and share those out as that cleaning is going on, but wanted to let you know that was happening here coming up. And the 52nd Avenue project down by the elementary school has caused some traffic issues, but it's finally done. They wrapped up about 1 o'clock last Friday afternoon, and in the email I send out to you all tomorrow, we'll have some nice before and after pictures so you can really see the improvements to that project. That's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments? Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick comment on the 52nd project. I've already heard really positive feedback and sort of curiosity about how that came to be. And I think, you know, if I understand correctly, that sort of the rotating nature of that facility or installation, I think is something that I think, you know, since we have limited resources and lots of probably traffic calming or pedestrian safety issues around town, it would be, I think, worth considering how folks can understand what the parameters are around that. But I already hearing sort of appreciation, as I hope you and staff are. So thank you.
Yeah, we are focused on that. Our communications manager, Ricky, and I had a conversation about that today. There is a social media post about the 66th project. And a lot of comments you get on those social media posts are, well, what about this street? What about that street? We've been very proactive, or tried to be very proactive about that with the council-authorized pavement condition index study. That information is starting to come back to us now, and what a very valuable piece of data that provides to us is what roads need the most attention. That's how we build our capital improvement plans, so we can focus on those areas that need the most attention and bring the overall index throughout the city up to a higher level of standard and maintain it that way over time. So trying to get that on track and then allocating the resources to make that happen is something that we're definitely working on.
All right, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, City Manager, for the updates. It's, I guess, building on what you were just talking about, how we tend to get questions about things when they are related, and thinking about the water tower and the draining and attention there. I know we'll get questions about our timeline for painting. So is that something that you could share an update on, or at least have ready so that we have that information before that information starts being shared out with the community?
Absolutely. So right now, we are looking at what it's going to cost to paint both the inside and the outside, and making sure that we have those costs firm so that when we present that to council as a consideration for the budget, that you have all the information you need to make those decisions.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I have a question on Oscar and Bianca Halbert. Do they know that we're doing this? Because I would like to do a little bit more, if at all possible, if they're still near here.
Yeah, we are going to recognize him on social media. My understanding is that he is aware, but he has actually moved out of the country to Portugal. I will see if I can confirm that. But I would love to have him here so we can do that in person. Yeah. I would love to have him here if we can do that in person. I'll try to find out.
He started out at the Enterprise, which turned into the local newspaper, and he was my first fairest interview when I was on the Planning Commission. And I told him that if you treat people right, you will get more information. Yeah. And he has.
I will do
I'll
it.
never forget that.
I will do what I can.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. So next is the review the resolution for the Recreation 6-year fee schedule with our Recreation and Parks Director, Jeff Betts.
Me too. Well, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm Jeff Betts, the Recreation Parks Director for the city, and I will be co-presenting to you tonight's proposed fee schedule for the Recreation and Parks fees and charges for the 5-year period of 2024 through 2028. Also here tonight, we have Support Services Supervisor Renee Norton. We have Aquatic Supervisor Rose Plug next to me. And on the end there is Danielle Ladd, Recreation Supervisor as well. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is, as I mentioned, we're going to review that 5-year recreation program fee schedule that is set by resolution. We're also going to propose adjustments to that 5-year fee schedule, and we do review that every year. So for tonight's presentation, we'll give you a little bit of background information. We'll look at the fee schedule and also the market analysis that we did do and a timeline for this project. Give you some time to ask us some questions. We can have some discussion and then also move into our suggested recommendation. So the process that we undertake for this is pretty, actually takes quite a bit of time for staff to do, and it goes beyond the supervisors here. We have programmers and coordinators all chip in and take a good look at all these different factors we're going to discuss. But it originally started, this process did, in 2000, and the council then adopted an ordinance that enabled the recreation and park fees to be set by resolution in a 5-year fee schedule. So staff do take this process very seriously and analyze each element that's listed here on this slide. So we take a look at independently each program's demand, that cost per unit, some of the comparisons, and then also the current economy, as well as some competition. We also look to set our fees to achieve the financial goals of the city, and then also one of our main goals, of course, is to maintain our customer base, but also attract new customers. So listed here are some of the relevant goals to why we do what we do in recreation and parks. So very important to how we set our fee schedule is taking a look at the updated council goals and also the city financial policies. And one of those is the cost recovery of the recreation fund. So back in 2000, the council did adopt an ordinance that said that recreation programs needed to recover their costs. And currently, I believe that's at like an 85% cost recovery in the budget. And we're not near that right now because of the pandemic, but that's been a long-standing financial policy for a number of years. So each year we bring this fee schedule, as I mentioned, back to the council to show the proposed changes to some of the already approved fees. So it is very important that we do this to take a look at the market and see where we're at. And part of that process is we will recommend for fees to stay the same, some of them sometimes to increase and sometimes even decrease, all depending on those factors. And just to explain the charts that you're going to see coming up, it can be overwhelming with a lot of numbers on here, but you'll see this the individual program listed on the left-hand column, and first on this slide is aquatics. And then the next set of columns, you'll see the 2023 approved, and then the 2024 approved, and then also what we're proposing to change. And if there's nothing listed on that far right column, then we're not proposing any changes beyond what was already approved previously. And if there is an already scheduled increase, that'll show in the middle column. But if you just see everything white and black, as you see on this slide in the middle column, that means that there are no scheduled increases to those fees. So I'll hand that off to Rose.
Okay, we're going to start with the drop-in fees and punch cards and monthly passes. We're going to stay at our regular, what was approved in the last year. We are making one exception. We're increasing the family swim fee, where a family would come into the pool with more than two or three kids. It's for up to 6 participants. So that needed to bump up a bit. So, but everything else will be as approved. And then the annual passes, aquatic construction, and American Red Cross courses, everything will remain the same as approved in the past. And then for our pool rentals, those will also remain as approved, with the exception of the therapy pool rental. Half-hour rental is increasing by $1 for each. And then these are our fee comparisons with other pools. This is our public drop-in for an adult. Most of the pools are at the $600 to $750 range. We fall within that range. We have Lake Stevens and Federal Way are at the really low and really high end. So we're pretty much right in the same ballpark as the others. Then for swim lessons, most of these pools are, and as well as us, are in the $7 to $10 range. Federal Way is really high. Again, Lake Stevens is really low. And this is for a half-hour lesson for children. So, and then our pool rental is a little challenging to compare. We have Linwood and Snohomish do shared rentals, and then all the other pools are, you get the whole pool. And we're kind of at the higher end for that service. So.
And, excuse me, and this is the slide that outlines our rentals, our room rentals, indoor playground rental. We have one scheduled increase in 2024 for the Mambo Twilight Dance Rehearsal Studio, but we're proposing that increases by a couple dollars. We're also proposing to increase our dance party rentals. Every other rental of our rooms and indoor playground and the sport and fun party package at the gym are all remaining the same.
Okay, and these are the youth programs. This slide specifically, these are the summer camps. And down there last year, it was a recommendation for tennis team. We don't have tennis team right now, but if we should bring tennis team back, then that would be the change that was approved last year. Continuing with the youth programs, so in blue there, those were approved changes for last year. And then, so in red there, that's the school-age childcare. And I am recommending a change, get bumped up. You will see on another slide the comparisons of for us to stay in market with the other after-school programs that we compare to. Why I'm requesting. So at the top there, these are the best comparisons for us for our school-age childcare, and there's where the arrow is. That's the after-school program. That's our program. Our school-age program. We are in 3 different schools, and in 2 of those schools, right at school. That's the program right underneath us there. They are also in the school too. So you can see their rates compared to our rates. So what you can see from this slide is that we are below with all of the other school-age care programs. So at the top there, that's our indoor playground, and no changes there to request. But we are requesting to change for our dance and fitness. This is per class, and you can see that we have different time limits there for the different classes. And so we are requesting to change the session rate. And again, that's so that we stay in market comparison to what the other programs are offering. So here you can see the other programs that we do compare to and what their lesson rate is for the dance and fitness programs. And we are below. Here, with the athletics program, this is open gym time, the cardio room, field rentals, and gym rentals. And I'm not requesting any change in rates there. But here with our basketball and volleyball leagues, I am requesting to change, this is per game. So it has been $62 per game for basketball, and I'm requesting it for $64. And for volleyball, it's been $33, and I'm requesting $36. There was, with both of the leagues, there has something special and unique about what we offer is that we hire officials to officiate our games, and the rates for the officials, the hourly fee has gone up drastically in the last 2 years. So we need to be able to pay for our leagues. So here you can see this is basketball league. a reason that we have Renton and Bellevue. There's not a lot of basketball leagues that compare to us in our area here. And Renton and Bellevue, they actually hire the same officials association that we do. So you can see what their game rate goes for. And same with volleyball, why I have Bellevue and Renton again. They hire the same officials association that we work with.
Okay, thank you. So this is just a summary of the timeline. We did go to the Recreation and Parks Advisory Commission on September 12th, and they did recommend the fee schedule as presented. So here we are on October 12th to review it, and then our recommendation will take us to Monday, the 16th, to adopt the resolution. So we would take questions now.
Do we have any questions? Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Just make sure a follow-up question, if you will. Back at the pool rental slide, the fee comparison in particular, where you note that, well, there's shared versus whole pool, but nonetheless, we seem to edge on the higher side. I suppose we should make sure we ask, are we having a hard time renting our pool?
We are not.
Well, there we go. All right. Thank you. End of my question.
Anyone? Oh, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all four of you. It's nice to have you all here, and I appreciate all the work you do and also all of the time and effort that goes into this process. I always think it's super interesting, and so I do have all sorts of questions because I'm sure, as I've probably shared in the past, this is an area that is incredibly important to how my family experiences Mountlake Terrace. It is incredibly important, I know, to our community, and it is something that I want to see continue to be successful. And I will also name that I have concerns about the cost recovery piece, and so just want to make sure that I am asking the questions so that I'm fully understanding a couple of pieces. And so one is just on the schedule, because I guess when I first started on council, I thought 6-year schedule meant that we came in and we every 6 years, like, we approved a 6-year plan and then we kind of revisited it, you know, on a higher level each year, but then we kind of went more in depth every 6 years. Is that correct or incorrect? Or is it like a rolling basis and every year we're just putting one more year worth of projections and that's the attachment that's included as part of our materials?
The latter.
The latter, okay.
So we add a year each time, but we do bring it to you in case there's changes. So if we weren't recommending any changes, we theoretically probably would not have to according to the ordinance, but we have you adopt a resolution each time because we do make changes to that exhibit.
Okay, that is super helpful. And that means I will probably dig in. I think I was waiting for this like year where we like have a deeper dive than the already very deep and thorough dive that we do. But I guess a couple other questions then. I think when we're looking at comparisons, I guess for pool in particular, I assume that Madison, which is North Seattle, right? We're talking about and that Linwood are really kind of our main competitors, correct? Most of those other pools are not realistic alternatives for folks who are looking for pool services given their location.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, and
All right,
I
tell me
just
more.
know because I have neighbors in Lake Stevens who tell me they come down to swim lessons in Mountlake Terrace. So I think that it's much more of a regional competition than you would imagine.
Okay.
So Linwood is definitely close. I mean, Federal Way is a long ways away, obviously, but I know people that travel to Snohomish versus here, and so there's definitely competition for those recreation dollars.
Okay. No, super helpful, and I think you touch on kind of part of my next question, which is you talk about demand when we're talking about fees and what we're setting for fees. Can we talk about which programs demand is outpacing supply, where we have more folks who are interested in that program than we are able to accommodate currently?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that one, but the demand right now is almost across the board more than we can handle. And a lot of that is because we're restricting it artificially because we don't have enough staff.
Yeah.
So the pool, you know, the swim lesson wait lists are huge, and everybody knows that, and we hear about it every day. And that's our primary objective, is to get more swim instructors in the building. But it also goes to lifeguards because we don't have enough people to have a large enough rec swim. If we had more lifeguards, we could have an even larger rec swim than we can right now, like we used to. Childcare is very full always, and so there's always a demand for that program. Additionally, I think dance at times has been bursting at the seams as well. I'd say there's probably some space available in dance right now, but it is in high demand. They typically have over 100 dancers as well. So, some of our programs are still picking up from the pandemic, like a lot of the athletic leagues. Volleyball bounced back right away, but basketball still kind of slowly picking up steam. So there's a lot of competition for people's time, especially in the metropolitan Seattle area. There's so many different things to do for everybody, right? So I think definitely there is a lot of demand left.
Okay, thank you. I think that's super helpful, and I guess kind of gets to, I don't know, getting into my personal thoughts and something that I would love for us to have more conversation about as a council at some point, or maybe to hear if you guys have already had some of this conversation. But from my perspective, it seems like if there are programs where we cannot keep up with demand, and there's different reasons for that, but if there's programs where we can't keep up with the demand, I think we should look at significantly increasing costs for non-residents. I think, outside of even perhaps, looking at other markets. I would love to see us have better cost recovery for those who are coming from Lake Stevens or other places. And then, continue to really prioritize keeping rates low for our residents. And I think that's helpful in a couple of ways, both in ensuring that they have access, but also recognizing that we put a significant amount of investment holistically as a community into these programs already. And so I guess I would just love to hear if that is maybe, I know there's some differentiation, and it's interesting how many communities don't, so I applaud us for having resident rates and non-resident rates. I think that's really important. And I guess I'd be curious if we have talked about perhaps increasing those non-resident rates more substantially than our resident rates.
Yeah, it has not came up lately. It is a strategy that we could take. Our policy is there's typically a 10% difference. It's a 10% discount for residents. So we could make that gap wider and basically give a steeper discount to residents is one way to do it. Another way to think of it, though, I think that the council has really actually addressed quite a bit, especially with ARPA money, is that scholarship fund. So the scholarship fund itself really, I think, can help. And it's helping Mountlake Terrace residents at the very least. But those ARPA dollars have just flown out the door. So the demand for that scholarship program is anything like I've never seen. It really is. So that $10,000 that we budgeted for this year, and Renee could probably speak to this much better than I could, but it's almost all gone. And if we only opened it in March? April. So in a few months, $10,000 was claimed. And we have another $10,000 budgeted for next year in ARPA money. But we also have the Michelle Ringler Scholarship Fund that's donation only, and that's only usually about $1,500 to $2,000 or so a year on donations. And that has a wider basis. We can allow anybody from Edmond School District to apply for that. But other than that, we do have DSHS discounts for childcare, which is a great thing. But that's one way to help, I think, is to augment our scholarship fund for people who really need the help. So, but another way is, we could look at escalating the cost for non-residents. It's really tough to do that for leagues or rentals because it's so hard to tell where people are from. One person could come in and book it and nobody else is from Mountlake Terrace. But for an actual program, drop-in program, it's easy enough for us to check their ID.
Yeah, okay. No, I think that's super, super helpful, Jeff, and I appreciate the thoughts. Yeah, I guess I would be of the opinion, and I love that there was so much interest and that those funds were used in the scholarship fund. I would love to see ways that we could invest more in that fund moving forward. And again, I think some of that comes from how do we find other funds? And I do think that, charging what the market will bear for programs that have high demand from those who do not live in our community seems like a way to potentially address both getting to, where we've said we're supposed to be from a cost recovery perspective, as well as perhaps maybe getting to a place where we have extra funds that we could use to invest in increasing scholarships for kiddos here locally. So I'm, I guess, comfortable with, kind of this, where it is, if this is what it needs to be this year, but I would really love to, as we look forward, and again, I would love to hear others folks on the council's thoughts, but to me, it seems like, to your point, there's going to be places it doesn't make sense, but I think there are probably places that it really does make sense, particularly swim lessons, where we cannot meet demand no matter how hard we are trying at this point, and being able to both potentially lessen demand from outside Mountlake Terrace, as well as potentially bring in more revenue from those outside of our community who are utilizing that program seems like a potential good thing to at least consider and have conversation around from my perspective. So the only other question that I had was around our school programs, because I know those are an important revenue source. And I know that there has been a lot of transitions in the school district in recent years, and Mountlake Terrace, for those that aren't familiar, is in a very unique place in that, I think the strength of our programs led them to be the only program outside of the Right at School program that's out at all of the schools that was maintained as far as kind of connected to the school district childcare. And so I guess I would be curious where that kind of that relationship stands as far as, do we anticipate continuing to be at those 3 schools? I guess just love to hear updates.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The schools are happy with us, and from what I understand is that the 3 schools we are at, they kind of fought for us to be able to stay there. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I would just add to that, when they did bring Right at Schools into the system, they wanted to remove all the rest of the programs.
Right.
And so we were lucky that we were able to remain. We also had an interlocal agreement that helped with that, but additionally, the quality of the program is really outstanding.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it's obviously, from a financial perspective, a really great option for our local families to have at their schools, in addition to the quality of the program. So I'm glad to hear that that is the case. And I think that is all that I have. So thank you all for the time. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Councilmember Salmore?
Renee, Rose, and Danielle, and Jeff. This is the second time I've seen this, so Park and Rec had a ton of questions. So we were inundated, and you guys did a wonderful job. And one of the things that I'm hoping that will come back, and Jeff's mentioned it, is that scholarship. And I think that's something that's really needed. And since my grandson was, in swim lessons and childcare and having dance lessons there, I'm very attached to the pavilion and everybody who works there. And your father, I coached or refereed for him. But, it's a small town community, and we want to really be able to serve our citizens well. And, sometimes when people are down on their luck, it's nice to have that pocket of money for them to have. And I also, Jeff, you had pointed out that Verdant also gave monies for a whole bunch of swim lessons. And our ARPA fund is $250 per scholarship, so it's not like a huge amount of money that we're giving people, but whatever we can very much helps. And thank, everybody who works at the pavilion. Sometimes I don't think you guys get thanked enough with what goes on there and what you provide to the community, so thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor, and I want to start with appreciation. First, really, I think it's hard to understate how beloved all these programs are across the community and across the region. I know lots of friends outside of town, friends and family who really are attracted to sort of all the services at the pavilion, and I enjoyed lessons and programming there as well. And I think it really is a municipal sort of small town resource, like Councilmember Sonmore just mentioned, that is quite unique. So I'm really appreciative of the conversation we're having about sort of local access and cost recovery. And so I guess where I'm going is, as a newbie here, this my first year on council, curious about what sort of cost recovery trends have been and sort of the level we're at now. I appreciate that we've got a goal there, but I think, if there's a need to, or an opportunity to rebalance sort of resident versus non-resident rates and sort of understand to the degree that we can sort of the ways that we can change sort of the access or the ability for residents to access programs. I really love any of your perspectives there, but I think first the question is like, what is cost recovery look like right now versus past years, and then not to drag this on too much longer, but if there's any other sort of thoughts that you'd like to share with council, like what has the experience been the past few years through the pandemic? Any things you think that we should know? I'd be curious to hear from you.
Well, the cost recovery has not been as good the last few years, with the lack of staffing and just the lack of programming at times when we were closed and just partially open at times. And some programs we weren't allowed to even run because of the number of participants allowed in a space, right? So, but that's been rebounding. The numbers have really gone up. I mean, I don't know if I would like to say the exact percentage right now because it's probably going to be wrong. I think that this is the best we've done since before the pandemic. Where we're at right now is the very best. I would say that we're probably going to finish in the upper 70s is what I would say. I'm guessing, top of my head. But we typically about now start doing some extended projections to figure out where we really were, for where we're going to be, I should say, at the end of the year. So we have a good idea to prepare ourselves, and it's about now when we'll be doing that, to find that out. So really the thing is with the resident versus non-resident is that 10% has been that way for a really long time. And really that's because it's a best practice nationwide, that 10% difference in discount. It's something that could change, obviously, but that's the reason why it is. And before the pandemic and our typical pool usage, really the largest single group would be residents of Mountlake Terrace, but far and away, a larger percentage is non-residents that use the pool. Really what pays for the pool are the non-residents. So the largest single group is Mountlake Terrace residents, but far and away 60% of the users would be outside of the city, throwing a number out there right now. But so in a lot of ways, they do end up paying a lot of the bills for the usage and the utilities, things like that, overhead costs of the pool. So really the best way to get back there is to hire people and to actually be able to run programs, because having 3 swim lessons groups in the pool at one time is not cost effective. Having 6 at one time is when we turn that cost recovery around. And so being able to hire people is really, really difficult right now at that frontline staff level when they're making minimum wage. And minimum wage is $15.67, something like that. Yeah.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and great conversation. I will add on to, on behalf of all of our residents, the thanks for all the work you guys do and how much we all appreciate the programs. In fact, as we were talking about the pool, I was one of those non-residents using the Mountlake Terrace pool as a child for a few years. Of course, I wasn't paying the bills, so bump the rates up. But I would be really curious about looking into the non-resident, bumping the non-residential rate and seeing what the numbers are. If we bumped it both 15% and 20%, and where we might want to be able to use those dollars. I mean, for instance, the grant funding or assistance, providing assistance is going to go away after next year, right? So I think we all agree it's been a great program. It's been very successful. It's something that's very helpful for our residents. And if there's a way, I mean, I think we would all like to find a way to be able to continue that program into the future. what would happen? How much would we raise by bumping the rates 15 or 20% to be able to fund that program? And, or, you know, part of the challenge in hiring people is paying them at minimum wage. What if we were to use some of those dollars to boost what we're paying them to be able to attract more talent to our programs? And so anyway, I'd love to continue that conversation and look at some numbers and then get back some ideas on, one, how much it would bring in, two, how we might want to use that money that we're bringing in to help both increase staffing and or provide funding, and three is what would be your expected decrease in, by bumping it to 15 or 20%, how much of a decrease in use from non-residents would you expect? So I guess we'd love to, again, have that conversation and look into the numbers and see where we want to go. Thank you.
Councilmember Salmore?
I guess I want to point out, and Jeff had told me one time too, I know you guys, you just talked about how you came up with those numbers. You compare, you see, you do the schedule, I can't see very, analysis of each program and demand, and the comparison with the competition. So I'm just worried if we bump it 20%, these are children that are trying to get swim lessons, and so sometimes we have to outweigh what we're doing, and we've always had to have cost recovery with the pavilion. It's something that has always been there, and we realize, especially now, with children not getting outside, not playing outside, not going swimming, not knowing how to swim, sometimes there comes a time of what we're offering as a city and a service. When I see the ball fields full, I'm thrilled because I know a lot of children are just home on their I don't even know what they want to say, iPad or whatever they're on. Game Boys, yeah. Thank you. But to me, it is about providing health for our citizens and really looking at what we're providing. We've always known that there's been a cost recovery, and I rather focus more on a pool recovery and getting a new pavilion. It's just, and Jeff, I think you explained it to me, and it just really opened my eyes about cost recovery and pricing kids out of the market from swimming. And I can't remember how you explained it to me, but it was like a couple years ago, and it just really opened my eyes to what we're really offering and how much can we really charge, because we just saw the cost recovery here and how we compare. I'm afraid if we go up 20%, we're going to maybe price ourselves out of the market. So it's just something to think about, maybe where we look other places. And I know you guys hear that all the time, a cost recovery, and that's kind of our job, right? And to look at the money. But I also want to point out it's a service, and it's about health. And a lot of times we're getting so far away from our healthy practices. Like when your dad was running programs, all the kids were out and about. I mean, we didn't have any choice. We didn't have Game Boys. We barely had Pac-Man, you know, and so it's just sad for me to see it kind of going the other way, and children not being able to have an outlet. In fact, that's one of the things that Olympia is going to be looking at is all the youth crimes that are going on. It's skyrocketed, and it's horrible, and we don't have the tools to really deal with it. And so part of me thinks that you guys are helping with that, is that you're really giving an outlet for children. And what I see too, when I used to go and see Christine, is there would be that coffee latch group with the, like a senior citizens, I fall in that category, group. And they would be just laughing and having so much fun. I'd walk in and I'm like, you know, this is fabulous that they have a place to be able to go. And a lot of people don't offer that. So sometimes we look at our dollars, but we also have to focus on the people and the service. So,
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to echo, I mean, agree wholeheartedly with Councilmember Sonmore. I think there is incredible value, I mean, both in all of the things that she mentioned, I mean, as well as the community building that goes on, through our parks and recreation programs. We had a great ribbon cutting earlier today, where the family used to be, a soccer coach in our community. And I mean, it is absolutely critical and vital and important, and it is one of the reasons I'm asking the cost questions, because not only do I want to ensure that we are able to continue to maintain and offer those programs, but I would love to expand them. And I think one of the things I think you will hear a lot from me, not just you, but my colleagues, as we start having conversations about how to reduce barriers, is we have plenty of people in our community who can afford to pay the actual cost to provide services. And that is without us subsidizing them, right? Which we are doing in a substantial way right now for our parks and recreation programs. And we have lots of people who cannot. And I think getting to a place where we are charging market rate for those who can afford it, whether it is utilities, whether it is recreation programs, I think is an important conversation for us to be having, because then that allows us to have more funds to be able to support those who cost is a barrier for. And so that is really where most of my questions are coming from, is I want to figure out not only how to, ensure that we continue to do the things that we're doing, but we expand them and reduce barriers and allow more of our community to be able to participate and reap all of the positive benefits that come with them. So again, thank you for being here. We appreciate all of you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Ryan?
Great discussion. Doing this is tough, because you don't want to price yourself out of the market, but you don't want to be too under. So you want to be just right for the money and offer those programs for the youth. And that it is important for youth to have programs in recreation. I know when I grew up in Seattle, we all had neighborhood parks, and we had some parks only had a recreation director in the summer, but everything was free. If I wanted anything, also I'd just go down to Green Lake. Anything at Green Lake, shuffleboard, and basketball, those kind of things, and inexpensive swimming at Evans Pool, at the lake. Now, and then when I grew up, to show you how old I am, there was Green Lake Bowling, that's gone. There's University Bowling, that's gone. Lilani Lanes, that's gone. And all those places, maybe middle school and high school kids hung out. And you could put 25 cents in a pinball machine and play for a while. All those things are gone. So we're going to have to think, as far as a community, anything else we could do above and beyond the pavilion. But hats off to you to try to balance all that and keep things going for our youth and community. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I will ask my question then. This fee comparison with the public swim drop-in, Federal Way stands out as the only one being so high above the others. Why are they so expensive? Is it because they have an Olympic-sized pool and it's newer, or?
It's a newer facility.
And they can
Yeah.
charge extra like that, and still, are they filling, are they?
Pretty much all aquatic facilities are at capacity for swimming lessons, and Federal Way Pool has a lot of fun things. They have a slide, and they have a leisure pool, and they have a river, and they have all much bigger than what we have. And so, but it's a bigger community too.
It
but
is.
It is
But our
very
community
nice.
draws from the other, other cities around us. So here's my thinking. So you get a nicer, bigger pool, and you can charge more money, and it's still so we can think about that with our new pool, when we get a new pool. And then on the other side of it, why is Lake Stevens so much cheaper?
It's a school district pool,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's pretty old,
It's small.
and it's small.
All right, because it's, you want to compare these apples to apples, but I'm just wondering why is Federal Way so much more, and they're still getting everybody to come? And I'm sure it's coming from people outside of Federal Way too.
I believe that's just that's what that's what they have to do. Whatever their council or however they're managed is telling them
Okay,
what they need to do.
but that gives us hope.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Anyone else?
Mayor, if I may, just a little bit of clarity. Is council comfortable moving this to the agenda on the 16th and providing this analysis before this presentation next year? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. It is. I just wanted to make sure that council wouldn't like to have us perform that analysis before we brought it back to you, instead of next year when we bring this ordinance to you, or resolution.
The what?
The 20%, 15%, yes. Yeah. Okay.
We can wait until next year for that. Okay. And so for right now, we can just go ahead with this one.
Yes, Mayor, my next slide was just the recommendation of staff would be at the Monday, October 16th, if council was comfortable, that staff would recommend that council moves to adopt the resolution setting the recreation park fees for 24 through 28. And it is right now on the consent calendar.
All right. Everyone's nodding. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have the review of the salary survey results with our Deputy City Manager, Carolyn Hope.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Glad to be with you tonight. I'm Carolyn Hope, the Deputy City Manager, and wanted to continue our conversation about the salary and benefits survey that we conducted. And this presentation is online now. We uploaded it this afternoon if you want to follow along on your computers. So the purpose tonight was originally to give you a financial analysis of the proposals. However, we need a little more time to do that work. It's a hefty endeavor. So tonight I thought we could talk about some of the changes that we made since our last meeting on September 28th and spend a little more time on the benefits and making sure that your questions are answered. If you have any other suggestions about the benefits, we could talk about those and consider any possible changes before the next meeting. So just to recap on where we've been, most recently we presented the results of the survey on September 28th. Prior to that, we came and shared the methodology with the City Council. So tonight we'll just do a little bit of background, provide you with those updates that we made since the last time we met, review the recommended benefits and have a discussion about those, and talk about next steps. And of course, we can answer any other questions you have about the entire survey tonight as well. So last time we spent quite a bit of time just talking about why we do a comprehensive salary and benefits analysis periodically. I just wanted to recap that there's sort of 3 different ways people could get salary increases over time. The first is what we're doing right now, which is a comprehensive review of the benefits, the entire compensation package, the salary, the benefits, how it compares to market, and also we looked internally at how our non-represented staff compared to our represented staff. We would do this comprehensive analysis every 5 years. Also, there's the performance-based raises that if we move to the step system would occur annually. They typically should occur annually, even if we weren't in a step system following performance reviews. And then finally, we have the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, which is an annual adjustment based on inflation. So since we last met, just a couple things. And I presented this in our presentation last time, but wanted just to reiterate that the accountant has moved to finance manager, and that followed a comprehensive review of all of the job descriptions. That title just was really misleading, and the description was clearly in the managerial realm. That position manages most of the staff in the finance department, supports the director in the development of the budget and auditing and other significant tasks. The other one was the recreation specialist. Actually, this is the position that we just talked quite a bit about, all the instructors we have at the Recreation Pavilion. This is a wide band of salaries because we have so many different kinds of instructors. And so we needed to end up breaking that into 3 different jobs because the bands were smaller than the range. And I made a couple notes. I just want to make sure I shared with you. So right now we start at minimum wage and go up to $47.49 an hour. And in the market study, the range would be $20.43 to $41.50. So even within the new market range, it's too broad to fit into one band in our schedule. So we would divide that into 3 positions. And really, just to reiterate, the reason there's such a broad range is some instructors are more entry level, some require certification, some are providing advanced level instruction. So it really just depends on what kind of class they're teaching and what their experience is. So another thing we heard from council last time we met was concern about the costs, and obviously we're still crunching the numbers and looking at implementation strategies to bring to you next time. But one thing we did look at is how the steps and the bands worked in other cities and with our represented staff members. And we did a recalculation of coming up with a 3.5% step increase along the way for each position. And that pushed us into 7 bands. And that's fairly in alignment with our 2 represented groups and some of our comparable cities as well. So this spreads the cost out a little more over time, still keeps the 2.5% between bands in alignment, and provides an opportunity to use a similar type of an approach that we presented last time. And the full table is in your packet if you want to see that. It's a little hard to see on the screen. So in coming up with 7 steps, we had to reevaluate how people would move from their current pay rate into the new system. So this table just shows how that would be broken out. And if someone, the example that we shared last time, if someone was making between $90,000 and $100,000 a year, and right now they were at 93, they basically are at 30% of the range of their pay. So they would move into step 3 on the table here on the left, because that's between 28 and 42%. So another thing that's happened since we last met is our city manager, Jeff Knighton, asked staff to complete a survey. He called it a stay survey to see what would it take for you to stay. Why would you want to stay working here at Mountlake Terrace? And so there were a lot of great questions and answers, and just wanted to share a few themes that sort of relate to this topic, the survey on the salary and benefits. One, generally morale is good and people are enjoying their job and their coworkers. 70% of people said that. 85% of people were appreciative of their medical benefits and their alternative work schedules. However, 92% said compensation would prompt people to leave, and 42% career advancement opportunities might prompt someone to leave. So just a little food for thought. If there are any questions about the updates, I can pause here for a moment before we go on to the benefits.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, love the stay survey. Love seeing, kind of some feedback from staff and what they're experiencing. I guess just a question on how those questions were asked. Were they reflecting that compensation would prompt staff generally to leave, or were they reflecting on themselves? I guess I'm just curious.
They were reflecting on themselves. We also had a pretty good response rate. We had 76 responses. This data is based on 70 responses because we needed to get this memo completed for you. But the 76 shouldn't change the percentages too much, but it was just reflecting on their own experiences.
Great, thank you. Super, I appreciate it, and appreciate the adjustment to the steps too, as long as I'm talking. So, thank you.
Yep.
I don't see anyone else.
Okay. All right, so I shared the benefit data with you last time, but I'll just review it briefly so that we can hopefully have a conversation about where you are with the different proposals here. So again, when we reached out to our comparable cities, we asked about their benefits, and this was a list of items that we sought. We wanted to learn about their vacation and sick leave accrual and carryover rates, health plan cost sharing, management leave, comp time accruals, and their work from home policies. And our proposals for changes are just based on things where we weren't in alignment with our comparable cities. So we were fairly in alignment with the things that I'm not sharing with you tonight. So vacation accrual, we were very close. The only real difference was we were not in alignment with our represented staff internally. And so there's one area where we could improve, which is to allow our non-represented staff to go to 17 hours a month of accrued vacation if they reach 21 years of service. And then for medical plan cost sharing, the main difference, again, was internally among our represented versus non-represented staff. Our represented staff for dependents have a 90% cost share, and non-represented staff only had 80. So we would recommend making those match at 90%. And then management leave would be a new benefit for exempt employees, and all of our exempt employees are non-represented. This is a common benefit nowadays among our comparable cities and others, and it's really intended to provide exempt staff with some time off since they're not allowed to work or be compensated for overtime, and typically exempt staff don't receive comp time. This would not carry over into the next year, and you could not cash it out if you were to leave the city, so it would have to be used or you would lose it. There's different ways that people provide management leave. So I've given you the scenarios here from our comparable cities. Some only give it to their director level folks, and some give it to everyone at different levels. One city gives it to everyone at the same level. So we proposed a 3-tier approach and are open to hearing your opinions about that. So this is just a summary of the proposed benefit changes, and I'll open it up for discussion.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Management leave, clearly we're not talking vacation. I know you all get vacation, right? So you're really talking like study leave or something like that. I've never heard of management leave, so I'm trying to put that back into my world. And I know Edmonds College, or at least the system, offered study leave, about 2 weeks worth. And it sounds like that's what you're suggesting here.
Yeah, I haven't heard that term, study leave, but that makes sense. It's, some people might call it administrative leave, but yeah, it's just extra time off.
Yeah, okay, all right. So for what that's worth, I don't know where it is here, how the bands worked out. Maybe they work out by years. At least with the community college system, you had to be on staff, I want to say 3 years before you were eligible. So that's, I don't know if that's in the mix here, but when I see bands, I don't remember what the bands mean. And so I would just say, well, the idea of leave was, well, you've been here long enough to now go on leave to reflect on what you've been doing, not just I start here and you should have that automatically. So it's just conceptually, that's why it's called study leave. It's not trying to be funny here, just like it's genuinely like you're looking back over your life, you know, trying to be a better manager, if you will.
Yes, well, to answer a couple of your comments there, the bands are the, we'll just go back to this slide. So on the salary schedule, on the far left column, there's a band number. And so as you go higher in the band number, you become a more senior member of our staff. So the highest number of bands are basically the directors and city manager staff. The middle level are managers or senior level staff who are more likely to work evening meetings a lot, do public engagement, maybe staff a commission, that kind of thing. And then the others would be the other exempt staff. Yep. And just to touch on your other comment, I do not know of a city that has a waiting period for the use of management leave. So, yep.
Right, we can't hear what you're saying. Okay, so Councilmember Murray, did you want to go?
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you, Carolyn. Appreciate you coming back. And again, just would reiterate, appreciate kind of the adjustments to the steps and also the stay survey. I thought that was great. I guess I do have a question. So do we cap vacation?
Yes.
We do cap vacation accruals. So what do we cap those at?
Oh, do you mean how much we can carry over? I have that information, but not handy.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I guess, I think management leave is interesting and generally supportive of it. I guess what I would want us to not create is a situation where we are adding more leave that folks aren't necessarily, at least what I've seen, since we have a whole budget item dedicated to, paying out folks when they depart the organization. We have folks that are racking up a lot of leave, and so I guess what I wouldn't want to do is create a situation where we are creating an alternative source of time off for vacation that then just increases that banked PTO or banked vacation, exponentially more over time. I'm very supportive of staff taking time off. I think there is a lot of value in that, both as an individual and for teams, to ensure that there are good systems in place, when someone is not here in the office. So generally, so supportive of the direction we're going, and I guess I would love to understand better, what are we capping vacation at? How do we think this impacts that, if at all, as we're going through this process?
Yeah, Jeff was just yelling at me from the gallery back there. 320 hours
320
is the cap.
Oh, and it's the same across the board? So it's just, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I guess that might be something that I would be interested in. I haven't had any time to process, but again, supportive of folks, I think having this time, I think it makes sense. And I think it makes sense to offer, whatever is kind of market for vacation time. I guess what I don't want to see is incentive to not utilize that time, which I think is what exists kind of in current state. So that would be my only feedback there.
All right, I don't see anyone's hand. Oh, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Councilmember Murray, for that set of questions there, because now I'm like, well, make sure I'm not taking this for granted. So management leave, again, in my world, we call it study leave. And now I'm going to talk about study leave and tell me if it matches management. The easiest way to think about it is it has no monetary value. So it's not actually going in like they do with my vacation hours. It's just sitting there as time that we do detract from, but that's your manager's job to keep track of that. So if you get 81 hours of Kenmore, that's on your manager, not you, right? That's how I remember it, because I had to track all that stuff for my people. It was very annoying. So again, I'm trying to figure out if that's the case here. But again, the takeaway here is it's got no cash out value. At the end of the year, if you recognize on the 27th of December you didn't use it, you've got 4 days you get to use. You don't go, oh, I'm going to push it into the next year, unless you take from the next year's 2 weeks or whatever the hours are. So,
That's right.
okay, perfect.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you. Just to kind of build on, I guess, where my questions were coming from, essentially, we are adding an additional time off for a lot of our exempt staff if we were to implement this, because it doesn't exist currently. So this would be additional time off that they are receiving. And to your point, there's not value in this specific time because it's use it or lose it, but it is additional time off, which means that their current vacation time, perhaps it is not going to be used in the same way, potentially. So I guess I would just, and again, I think if it's both used, that's great, and I would encourage that and support that. But what I would not want to see is us increasing, we have PTO in my world, vacation banks in a way that is increasing the cost liability for us, because that doesn't feel like a value add for, anyway. So I'm going to stop talking because
Okay, go ahead.
Again, thank you. And again, make sure I'm not presuming anything here. If 320 is 320 and I use my 2 weeks, I still only get 320, but we've already legally said you have to do the 320. So we're on the hook for that, as I say, as a city, no matter what. But I see your point. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten to 320, but that's not what I have seen in the state. I've seen people with 700 and trying to convince them to whittle that down. And then they changed it to, well, now we're just going to erase it, which is, I don't know if we do that or not, because that's a whole different version of capping, where you can get as many or hours as you want, but on December 31st, everything cuts back to 320. And I don't know if we're still doing that or not, but it was because of what you just described. I mean, I literally came on staff and had people with 800 friggin' vacation hours, and they look super rested. So
yes, every year on the December 31st, if you're over the cap, it's gone.
Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, great presentation. I think understand sort of the landscape here and appreciate the recommendations. But moving away from the management leave conversation, I just want to express appreciation for sort of parity across the board for the non-represented staff. I think all of those recommendations make good sense to me. So just to bring us back to some of the other pieces here, I appreciated the thought process and the policy recommendation.
Or did you have your hand up? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to have questions at the end about the financial impacts, but while we're on the management leave, I had a question. So vacation time is capped at 320. Sick management leave would be capped at 80 and that's per year. And then what is sick leave?
I saw sick leave.
So sick leave is not capped, but the payout at the end, at retirement or when you separate is limited to 25%. And there's a formula there about how many years of service you have and everything like that. But the total number of sick hours are not eligible to be paid out. And I can share that formula with you tomorrow or early next week.
So I'd be interested in that. I also suspect that, and so I'd be curious, how many managers and/or exempt staff, managers, directors utilize their sick leave? And is there perhaps a way to allow them to use their sick leave? And maybe it's just adds up to being the same thing, but I'm just thinking, if they aren't using their sick leave, allow them to use it for general leave or a longer vacation or whatever.
So what that sounds like is very similar to what Councilmember Murray described as everything, I assume, is in one PTO bank and you can use it for whatever you want.
Yeah.
So that's yeah.
So I would be curious as to exploring that option, perhaps. But anyway, I will have more on the financial impacts in a minute.
Oh. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to note that the cost of the non-represented staff is distributed across many different funds. And so this table is really just to show you what the percent change in labor costs would be by fund. And next time we will come with a lot of details of how this breaks out over a 6-year period, incorporating the projected COLA that we already had in the budget and some projections for what our union negotiations would look like next year and how those would play out over the next 6 years. So our next steps will be to come back to you on November 2nd with that financial analysis. And if you need any additional time to have a discussion, we can schedule that. At some point when you're ready, we would have action by council and then implement our strategies moving forward. And of course, in 5 years' time, we would redo this analysis to see if we're still on track with the market. And with that, I can take any other questions.
Councilmember Salmore?
Your meeting next week, next Thursday on this?
No, there will be no meeting on the 26th. The next council meeting will be November 2nd, and we will have the information, the financial impacts at that meeting.
I didn't hear, you said, so next meeting's completely canceled, and our next meeting is when?
November 2nd. No, our next meeting is not canceled. Monday is, sorry. Yeah, November, so. Everybody gets Monday off. No, so October 16th, next Monday, we will have our meeting. The following Thursday meeting, October 26th, we will not have,
So we get Monday off?
No. Sorry. Nice try.
Okay, so then you can, I don't see anyone else, so you can go ahead, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, thank you for the additional information and listening to some of our thoughts and ideas and incorporating that and bringing it back with some other options to consider. This is going to be a challenge because on one hand, I think we all appreciate our staff and what they do and the service they provide and need to pay them adequately. And not only that, we need to be able to attract, we've got positions that are unfilled and we need to be able to attract talent. We need to retain our talent that we have. And so there's clearly good reasons to not only consider this, but adopt something. The challenge, however, is, of course, the financial impact. And it is going to cost a lot. And it's not that our staff doesn't deserve it, because they do. But the question will be, can our budget handle it? And so I am going to be very interested in the 6-year financial forecast and what the impacts are. But I'd like to, when we do that, I hope you're also not only providing a full picture of all of these options into one number, but also breaking them out so that we're able to consider different pieces when we're when we're looking at the numbers. And, I mean, for instance, maybe we want to do the, what were the benefits, you know, the 2 out of the 3 benefits. And maybe we just can't afford, or maybe we need to delay consideration of one of the benefits for a future time. I don't know. Because again, we don't have the numbers, right? So it's hard to say. I'm just forewarning us for the financial impact that we already know it is going to be. The initial number was $1.5 million right up front. But then over a 6-year period, that $1.5 million is going to turn into, you know, $6 million or whatever. And you know, how will projected revenues keep up? And okay, so let's say that the 6-year financial forecast does keep up, and it appears that we are continuing to be in the black and we're able to afford it right now. But then what happens, and this is what, you know, the burden will fall on you guys, is if we have an economic downturn or we do face financial troubles in year 4 or 5, how are we going to, what adjustments are we going to be able to be forced to make to be able to continue providing the services that our residents demand and need versus, anyway, so a lot to consider. And again, appreciate all the work that's going into this, because it is something that we do need to take a look at, and our non-representative staff certainly deserves to be on par with our representative staff. And anyway, there's looking forward to continued discussion, particularly when the financial impacts. I'm just hoping that when you provide that information to us, you're able to break down and give us a number of different pieces to consider and ways to look at how it's going to impact, you know, through, anyway, the more options we have to consider is, I think, going to be helpful if we see in year 6 that we're going to face a crunch. So, thank you.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to also express, I think, how appreciative of the sort of grounding in the staff survey results that you shared. I'm appreciative of that, because I think it really informs the conversation and, you know, sort of describes something we all probably suspect and know in terms of, you know, that at the end of the day, sort of, you know, there are many other options out there, and that, you know, pay is a major consideration. I think it's also noteworthy that, you know, 30% of staff, you know, do see morale issues, and I, you know, I'm glad that 70% of folks are happy. I think there are many reasons to stay to work at the city, and you know, understanding that you know, the most of the staff have filled out this survey, and most of staff are happy. You know, and some of those other sort of expressions of staff feelings and preferences are really helpful for us as policymakers and for this conversation. So I want to sort of acknowledge that, and also, you know, if there are ways to sort of ground us in sort of you know, staff feelings or staff feedback, I think it's really helpful for me at very least, in terms of you know, sort of contextualizing you know, this conversation as we look at which dials to turn, and you know, the potential sort of costs and you know, our ability to do you know, to turn these dials you know, a certain number of clicks to make sure that we are trying to meet the clear need to pay staff more. So any of those sort of extra sort of contextual bits, I think, are really helpful for me at very least. So thank you.
I will provide more information on the stay survey to council. Won't share individual comments because I promised the staff that I would not. But I will share broad themes with everybody and kind of gives you more context about what, not only, pay and those kind of things, but general themes about how the organization is working and functioning and some suggestions on how we could do things better.
Anyone else?
Oh, I'll just
Councilmember
point out,
Sommer?
well, thank you for your information. I know you wouldn't have presented this without knowing that we couldn't afford it. And so it's nice that the staff has seen this and they're kind of preparing for what's coming to them. And so it's going to be interesting to see where we're making up that other money from. And so I'm anxious to see where the money's coming for the salaries increases.
Okay, I don't see any other hands going up. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to public comments. Do we have any public comment? Excuse me.
Nobody signed up in the audience unless you. And there's one person online. If you're interested in addressing council, please use the hand raise tool. Going once, going twice. There's no public comment.
All right, thank you. Next is the review of the October 16th. October 16th meeting agenda. It looks like it's going to be a short meeting, but then who knows?
Can we limit council comments? You're right.
Well, next is council comments. We're going to move on to council comments then.
Oh, I thought you were going to go straight to adjournment. Cut us off.
Go ahead, Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll keep this brief. But I've received some feedback from online listeners and folks in the recent public meetings that we've had in this space, this physical space, and that is that we should get friendlier with our microphones. So just wanted to put that out there so folks can actually hear us. I see the city clerk gesticulating, but that's it for me. Thank you.
You mean they can't hear us? All right. Anyone else do, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I wanted to go to the city manager report and look at miscellaneous. So first I noticed city attorney costs are rising approximately 8%. Is that standard? Just asking the question.
That is pretty standard across the board from what I understand from my counterparts.
Okay. Question 2, it says we've hired a consultant for both DEI training and strategic planning. I know I had heard rumors of that. Will that be making its way to us, which includes anything you can tell us about it?
Yeah, and I'll pass that on to Carolyn. She's the liaison or the staff member for DEI.
Okay.
Staff member for DEIC.
Perfect. And then lastly, I see that Isaac Harrison has resigned from the Civil Service Commission. Just wanted to say thank you to him publicly, and I'm happy to see that he is remaining on the Planning Commission, but just wanted that to not go unnoticed. That said, I did not know we had a Civil Service Commission until you were in a hiring committee, which is just my way of saying, how do we replace that person if that is actually the plan? And just wondering what that process looks like.
I did send a letter to Mr. Harrison thanking him for his service on the Civil Service Commission. Civil Service Commission is slightly different than, say, Planning Commission or DEIC or any other type of advisory board that we have, in that they certify the results for police academy or police recruits. The process, I believe, is just a call for volunteers and then selection, and I don't recall in our ordinance who has the authority to select that person, but I'll find out.
Do we need to replace him?
We would like to replace him as soon as possible. That's a very important, especially with the challenges that we're having, hiring police officers, getting a list certified. You can only choose a new officer off the certified list. So having those lists certified quickly enables us to at least explore new officer recruits more quickly. So everybody's trying to snatch them up as quick as they can, those that are available. So being able to be quicker than everybody else is important.
All right, anything, oh, go ahead.
Oh, and to address your questions about the DEI consultants, yes, we are negotiating contracts right now with the 2 consultants. The city manager has the authority to sign those contracts. They're only about $30,000 each. So we wouldn't be bringing the contracts back to city council, but there will definitely be engagement with city council, both on the training side and the planning side. So we're finalizing the scope of work for those 2 things right now.
All right. Councilmember Payne Donovan, do we want to announce the local showing of the film? Because it is going to be open to the public to purchase. Or is that? Okay. We'll let it pass for right now then. But it is going to be next Friday night at the Cinnabar in Mountlake Terrace, and it will be our 2004 Mountlake Terrace High School graduate. In her biggest role so far in a movie, Martin Scorsese is the director, and it stars Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, and the person that we're talking about, our graduate, is Lily Gladstone. So, anyone else? Okay, I don't see anything else. Why don't we just adjourn? Thank you.
Before someone comes up with something?